Hi, I'm Christopher Warnock of Renaissance Astrology, and today I want to talk about our new Lepus the Hare Constellation Talismans. So, as always, Renaissance Astrology is the absolute cutting edge of any type of astrological magic. Um, we're the ones who started in the first place over 20 years ago. We got it popularized, translated Picatrix, provided the whole framework for astrological magic, and we're still in the absolute forefront of working with what our tradition has provided, but actually putting it into practice. And constellation talismans, I think, are this is the sort of frontier. When I first started 20 years ago, people would look at a planetary talisman and they could kind of deal with the planetary talisman. They had a sort of sense of Jupiter. They felt comfortable with Jupiter. But if you mention anything else out of our incredibly full toolkit of all the incredible celestial and astrological talismans that are possible from our traditional sources, people would get a little wonky. And I remember fixed stars, people would be like, "Oh, I don't know, I don't know about, never heard of that." Now, fixed stars are becoming really almost mainstream. People are very excited about them. People are looking at fixed star talismans, and people are making fixed star talismans, which I think is great because, again, we pioneered the way, we blazed the trail. We've been doing fixed star talismans for a long time. Now, when you think about a fixed star talisman, there's over 1,000 visible fixed stars, and they're organized in 48 constellations. And so there's the 12 zodiacal constellations that we're familiar with, the signs, and then there's 36 extra zodiacal constellations. And so my view is when it comes to any celestial factor, it has a spirit and it could potentially be invoked and you could potentially make a talisman with that. The problem is of the huge number of celestial factors of objects out there, we only have information from our traditional sources about how to make a small number of those. And my belief is that we're going to build that up. People are going to have, again, as our traditional sources, as the authors and the compilers had, this direct experience through dreams or visions, directly coming from those, the spirits and the angels of those stars, planets, whatever celestial factor you're talking about. We're going to start building that up. And for example, I've done one fixed star in my 20 years, a new one beyond our traditional sources, Fomalhaut. That's one that I have a personal connection to, and I was able to get positive divination as far as, yes, proceed with this. And I've manifested the sigil and everything like that. So, it's a slow process. It's not something you can just make up on the spot, as people seem to think you can do. So, as I said, I treat constellation talismans very much like fixed star talismans, and this is the same approach that our traditional sources take. If you look at Marsilio Ficino, his 3 books on life, again, he talks about constellations, and he treats them exactly the same way that he would treat a fixed star talisman. He wants to have them rising or culminating, and he wants to have the moon in a positive aspect, applying aspect with that constellation. So the same basic structure that we're getting for fixed stars, from Hermes on the 15 fixed stars, which is our key source, we're going to also use for constellations because, again, this is the same approach that the traditional sources take. If you're imbued with that tradition, you have the same worldview, the same spiritual approach, the same methodology, and you're working in the same tradition, you're going to come up with a similar answer. So again, that was my intuition, and it was confirmed, I said, by Marsilio Ficino. So constellations. We have a number of different sources of constellations, and a lot of them are lapidary sources. So these were originally focused on the magical and medical properties of stones, insofar as they're manifesting this occult virtue that's coming through the celestials, but of course from the one originally. And so it's been really fun to start going through these different sources and to look for constellations that are fun to make. So the latest one that I made is the constellation Lepus. Lepus is Latin for hare. So what you call a rabbit in America, they call it hare. I mean, they're different species, but basically the same family in Europe. So Lepus is a constellation that's just south of the celestial equator near Orion, the hunter, sometimes seen as being pursued by Orion and his dogs. So beautiful constellation. And so what I do for constellation talismans is a fixed star is only going to be 1 degree. So you can put that specific to whatever, for example, Algol is 26 Taurus. If you're going to make an Algol talisman, like I said, you just put that degree of that fixed star rising or culminating. Now for the constellation, constellations can be very large. So what do you do in terms of having the constellation arising or culminating? So, and the boundaries are kind of inconsistent. So what I have done is to pick a marker star. And so sometimes I've picked a star in the middle of the constellation, and I've started thinking that that alpha star, the brightest star, is a good way to connect with that constellation. So in this case, we're going to use Arneb, which is Alpha Lepus, which is the brightest star in the constellation Lepus, and it's currently located at 21 Gemini. So that's the marker star that we use for this constellation. And so we either have it rising or culminating. In this case, I believe it is, yes, it's culminating. So in looking at our traditional sources, one source I've really been enjoying looking at is Camillo Leonardi. And this is a translation of Fiorello's translation of the Mirror of Stones. Again, like I said, this is a lapidary source, but it has lots of useful information and expands on the information in some of our other sources. So I've really been having fun making talismans from Leonardi. Plus, he's a Renaissance astrological magician. And he says the constellation Lepus is good for healing and for, quote, protecting against devil's tricks, and no evil spirit will harm its wearer. So that sounds good. And the Liber Sigillorum, again, this is another one of our lapidary sources, and this is found in our translation of Celestial Gems and Sigilis, which has a lot of different very useful sources on fixed stars and constellations. Check this out. There's a link to that if you want to order that. It says of Lepus the hare, it says, keep it on thee, and no demonic shade, no demon will be able to do thee harm. And so the Lepus talismans, basically, like I said, these are spiritual protection and health. And then also Vivian Robeson, who's fixed stars and constellations, notes a lot of legendary material about the extreme fertility of rabbits and hares. And this makes, therefore, the Lepus talisman appropriate for growth, and we've optimized it for wealth. So this is a spiritual protection, particularly against evil spirits, curses, and any kind of malefic attack, as well as being a health talisman, and finally having a wealth talisman as well. So it's really a very rare triple threat, triple power talisman for some of the most important things that people are interested in. Like I said, I'd say wealth is probably number one, then spiritual protection, and health is also in there as a really important goal that lots of people are looking for. So very cool talisman, very useful powers, very cutting edge in use of the constellations. Let me just show you what they look like. These are the bronze. You can see the rabbit there with the stars, the bronze Lepus talismans. And let me just show you the image. This is the same design that's on the talismans, and this is the meditation consecration image that's provided to everyone that gets a Lepus talisman from Renaissance Astrology. So really cool talisman. So, I really have, like I said, Renaissance Astrology has always been at the forefront of astrological magic. And if you look at the website, you can see the links there. You can see the incredible number of talismans that we have. Nobody has as many talismans as we do. We want to have an incredibly full toolkit for people to have available to them for all sorts of purposes. And you can take a look at the talismans. Again, if you're serious about getting a Renaissance Astrology talisman, you can contact me. There's a link there. Send your date of birth, and I'd be happy to look at the compatibility of a specific talisman or to give you talisman suggestions. Ultimately, I think intuition is the best way to decide. Also, you can do divination if you do types of divination like tarot or I Ching or pendulum or something like that. That's also a good way to decide which talisman is best for you. In my view, I don't think you can look at your natal chart and say, oh, this is the best talisman for you. I mean, obviously, again, the problem with that is sort of like, what's the best vacation for me? It depends on what kind you want to do. I mean, do you want to go sightseeing? Do you want to, do you want to walk on the beach? Do you want to, have adventure travel? Really, what goals are going to determine what's best for you. And then of the specific talismans, again, I wish I could come up with an astrological way of saying, oh, yeah, this will definitely work for you. I don't think you can do that. I have to be honest with people about that. So again, to me, the best guide is your intuition. At the same time, I'm happy to give suggestions as far as what what's compatible with your chart, and then also what my individual intuition tells me is a good talisman for you. So check out the new Lepus talismans. Like I said, keep doing these cool talismans. It's very exciting to do those. If you're checking too much after October of 2024, these talismans may not be in stock. This is an unusual talisman, not one that we will, necessarily have try to necessarily keep in stock like algal, which is super popular. We like to always have those in stock. And it's also, the thing about talismans is they typically have only a single or a core function. These are covering, like I said, 3 different areas: the spiritual protection, health, and wealth. So definitely worth checking out. And then check out all of our constellation fixed star talismans. In fact, all the over 100 talismans that are available at Renaissance Astrology.